This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Monday, September 11th, 2023, and we're so glad you could join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will be joined by Dan Poston of Pivot Bio. We will talk about some of the interesting results from field studies recently, including a study from Iowa State University. We will also have a check of the ag weather outlook, but first, let's run down the markets.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day, we are joined now by Robin Schmahl for our closing market analysis. Robin, are we still in that holding pattern right now when we are just waiting for tomorrow's USDA report?
Yeah, I would say pretty much that's the situation. So as far as the corn and soybeans are concerned, wheat, I think, saw a little more pressure today, partially because it's not as prominent on that report, but also because on the G12 or the G20 summit, there was the Black Sea grain deal was one of the main topics they were going to talk about, and that failed to find really any consensus on that moving forward. Turkey, who's been instrumental in brokering that, if you want to use that term, before. Now they're seeming to side with Russia a little bit and pushing for some more concessions as far as the other parts of the world in order to open up that grain corridor again or whatever. So it's just that was maybe a little bit more disappointment that way. That put pressure on the wheat market. But on the beans and corn, probably more of a holding pattern. I think more of a position squaring type situation. Now, we did have export inspections out this morning. Corn was fairly good at 24.6 million bushels. That was up 5.6 million bushels from last week. Now, this is the new crop because the current crop, I should say, because the 22-23 crop is finished now as far as the exports are concerned. Soybeans were down. They were at 11.4 million bushels, down 3.6 million bushels from last week. And wheat was 14.9 million bushels. That was up 3.2 million bushels. So they were kind of a mixed situation, but a little positive to corn. Now, crop conditions are expected a little bit lower today. We're looking at 52% good to excellent in corn, 53% last week, and 53% last year. Now, deteriorating corn or soybean positions generally at this time of the year, you kind of have to factor in that the crop is drying down, it isn't maturing. So some of that decrease doesn't necessarily mean that the market's getting, or I shouldn't say the market, the crop is getting worse. It's just more of a, from the eye level, looking at it saying, okay, it's not quite as green as it was before, so the good to excellent is a little bit less, but so that's kind of a normal thing right now. So I don't think that would really necessarily be bearish to the market if we decreased a little bit, unless we saw a huge amount of decrease. Soybeans are projected at 51% good to excellent, 53% last week, and 56% a year ago. Corn harvest is expected to be 6% done. Soybean harvest 2% done. Spring wheat harvest is expected at 86% complete. Now, the WASDE report tomorrow estimates, average estimate for corn is 173.5 bushels to the acre. Last month report was 175.1, so it's down 1.6 bushels to the acre on the anticipation or the average estimate. Production at 15.008 billion bushels, 103 million bushels below the previous month's report. Soybeans at 50.2 bushels to the acre, down 0.7 bushels or 0.7 of a bushel from the previous estimate in August. Production at 4.157 billion bushels, down 48 million bushels from their previous estimate. So that's kind of being factored into the market right now. Now, last year's corn yield was 173.3 bushels to the acre. So we're not far off with what we're looking at, an estimate just slightly higher for the estimate relative to the final last year. Soybeans last year were 49.5 bushels to the acre in the end when everything was in the bin, all settled and done. So the trade is going to be heading for that probably tomorrow, a little more slow trade positioning ahead of that. Now, the other thing that was noteworthy was at this G12 summit, which I mentioned before, the Indian Prime Minister Modi, he proposed an increased effort for fuel blending to increase ethanol blending to 20%. That would be pretty significant. That's, of course, whether that really can get some teeth or the other countries will grasp that or not, but that's pretty significant to increase that blending to that amount, and that would certainly be a good thing right now.
And Robin, let's switch over to the other side of the markets. What took place in the livestock complex today?
Well, cattle carried through the momentum from Friday. New contract highs and later contracts from February out in live cattle. Feeder cattle, all contracts made new contract highs. We're just not slowing down there. We're seeing any price resistance. These new highs and the support that's in the market, keeps fund traders active in that market, buying into it and holding longer term positions. They're not like in the hogs where it seems like more of it's short-term trading, more scalping of those contracts on a daily basis. They're buying and holding in the cattle market. Well, we had steady cash prices last week surfaced, and in the northern dressed, we were 290 to 292, mostly at 290, which was steady with the week before. Southern traded at 180, which was about $1 higher than the previous week. So that provided more support into that market after a couple of weeks of steady to lower cash. Feedlots were able to hold out and be able to get the packers to step up. Now, there wasn't a huge amount of cattle traded last week again, so packers may have to bite the bullet again this week if feedlots decide to hold out. Now, on the WASDE report, there will be some projections on there for prices for steers and for the beef market, but I don't really hold a lot of weight on that because those are projections and they keep changing from month to month. And it's just something to really make note of. But the fact that we're seeing that strength still continuing in that market. Now, boxed beef, though, at noon was lower. We had choice down 270, select down 76 cents. But that doesn't seem to be making a lot of difference. We've seen some variable boxed beef prices last week. Really didn't make a whole lot of difference. The market is just being supported by the buying interest. In the hog market, we saw a flip today. It changed places of the October and December. On Friday, October futures were lower than what they were in December. Today, they flipped and changed places. So October was higher than December. And that seems to be what's happening almost on a daily basis lately. And like I mentioned before, the hogs seem to be short-term trading. The traders seem to be buying and selling, scalping that market. They're not taking long-term positions, but the increase today is keeping futures in the sideways trading pattern. So at least that's a positive aspect to that maybe it's trying to find some support in here, but we need to be helped with cash. We need to be helped with cutouts. Now, the National Direct Morning Report was down again today at 155, lower cash. Cutouts, though, were up a large amount at $3.30 at the noon print. Now, cutouts were strong, about $3.50 or so in that area on Friday. So this adds to that. So this might cause packers to be a little more aggressive as we move through, Tuesday and Wednesday's buying. if demand is seeing the signs of stronger consumer usage, and that retailers have to restock shelves. So the hogs are a little bit dicey right now. They're not following any real type direction. They need to find both cash and cutouts moving in the same direction.
Robin, thank you so much for the information here today. As always, what is the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
You can call me directly at 877-256-3253 or go to agmarket.net, and there's a phone number there that they can pick up and call, and somebody will be glad to work with them.
Robin Schmahl helping us get everything sorted out before that big USDA report tomorrow. Robin, thank you so much for the time, and have a great rest of the day. We'll speak again soon.
All right. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you to Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net for our closing market analysis. Let's turn our attention now to the closing numbers, courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart.
December corn up 2 even at 485 3/4. November soybeans up 6 even at 1369 even. October soybean meal up $3.30 at 406 even. October soybean oil down 12 cents at 61.34. Chicago wheat down 11 1/4 at 584 1/2. Minneapolis wheat down 4 even at 766 3/4. Kansas City hard red wheat down 8 1/4 at 723 3/4. December oats down 6 3/4 at 493 1/4. On the Merc, October live cattle up 1 even at 184.22. September feeder cattle up 87 cents at 256.22. October lean hogs up $1.02 at 82.55. August pork cutout down 28 cents at 110.72. And Class 3 milk up a cent at 17.19.
And that's been a check of the markets here on Ag Matters PM. It's time now to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association, and the Soy Checkoff. And then coming up, I will be joined by Dan Poston of Pivot Bio. This is AMPM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
This is Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. In today's episode, I'm joined by Dan Poston of Pivot Bio.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm here today at Pivot Bio at Farm Progress 2023, and I'm with Dan Poston. Dan, thanks for joining us. Could you tell us, please, what your job duties are at Pivot Bio and what your job title is?
Well, my job title is Vice President of Field Research and Development, but to simplify that, basically when our microbes leave the lab and greenhouse, my team is in charge of both early, mid, and late stage field testing of all those microbes.
And Dan, today you gave a very interesting talk here at the Pivot Bio exhibit, and you were talking about the benefits of the microbial nitrogen, and you started off your talk in saying that it's difficult to know exactly how much nitrogen to apply. Could you expand on that a little bit, please?
Sure. The response to nitrogen is a pretty consistent plant response, but the magnitude of response is always dependent upon environmental conditions. The more loss you have, the more nitrogen you need. So you may have some years where you can grow 250 bushel corn with 60, 80 units of nitrogen. And then you have another year or positions in the field, places in the field that require 250 units to still grow the same 250 bushels of corn. So you never know what the conditions are going to be going into the season. So the result is farmers always apply on the very high end to make sure that they don't lose yield potential. So that means most years they're grossly over applying nitrogen.
And Dan, that's where this microbial nitrogen all comes in. It's all about the efficiency and the use of that nitrogen. So how exactly does the Pivot Bio microbial nitrogen achieve that?
So what we've done at Pivot Bio is we've taken microbes that we know have the ability to fix nitrogen. That means they can take atmospheric nitrogen, turn it into an ammoniacal form of nitrogen that plants can use. So we've identified those. We've also gene edited those so that they will actually work in the presence of nitrogen and not be repressed or shut down in the presence of nitrogen. So we force them to work even in the presence of nitrogen, and we ask those microbes to make enough nitrogen for themselves and force them to share some of that extra nitrogen with the corn crop as well. They also colonize the crop roots, which is extremely important the proximity on the surface of the roots. That means when the nitrogen is made, it's available for immediate uptake by the roots. So the proximity piece is really important. So instead of having nitrogen that may leach below the root zone or not be available to the roots, you've got nitrogen on the roots all the time.
Dan, you've also talked a lot today about that variability year to year, both with traditional nitrogen, but also how does that apply to the microbial nitrogen, where it might look like one year you didn't have the best results necessarily, but then the next year they bump right back up and you're doing the same things?
Well, you've got to think about it like this. The microbes are placed in the soil around the seed or on the seed. They will colonize the plant roots when they come out. And more than likely, in most cases, they're going to fix and make nitrogen, and that nitrogen is going to end up in the plant. We've documented that countless times on thousands of fields and millions of acres, the effect that it has on the plant. So we know that it makes the nitrogen, it ends up in the plant. When you are able to see a large yield difference with these microbes, tend to be either places in the field or during years where you have high nitrogen loss. For example, you may have this wet area of the field that loses a lot of nitrogen to denitrification. You may have a 10-15 bushel response to the microbe in that spot. Then you may have another spot in the field where the microbe, you can only measure 2 to 3 bushel response. And the collective effect is the average effect across the whole field. That can be a year effect from one year to the next, like we showed in some of our data from Purdue University, where you had a small effect one year and a large effect the next year. One year we lost a lot of nitrogen to leaching. The next year we lost essentially none. So the measurable yield difference was noticeably different. But what the microbe did and the nitrogen that it made is essentially the same. It's still there, still making the same nitrogen, still doing what it's supposed to do. It's just you're going to have a bigger measurable yield difference in years where you have a lot of nitrogen loss.
So that yield difference doesn't mean anything about the consistency of the product from Pivot Bio.
That's correct. The microbe, if it colonizes, it's going to fix nitrogen. It's going to provide that nitrogen to the plant. Some years the plant's going to need that extra nitrogen more than others. Or in some spots in the field, it's going to need that extra nitrogen more than others.
And then Dan will wrap up with what you wrapped up with, which was a very cool study from Iowa State University. Could you explain the new ways that they are using to capture some data?
Sure. At Iowa State, we partner with them and the Iowa Nutrient Education Research Council several years back to help Iowa State design a new system of measuring nitrate and phosphate leaching. So basically, they built what we call steel box mesocosms. So they're 4 foot square, 4 foot deep, undisturbed soil cores, and those boxes give them the ability to accurately measure everything that goes through that soil core profile. And what we found there with proven treated plots is that we're measuring noticeably less nitrate leaching out of the bottom of the boxes. So not only are we providing a source right on the roots that we know is likely getting into the plant, has a positive effect on the plant, that positive growth effect is probably also helping that plant extract more nitrate out of those boxes, which ends up with less leaching for the environment, which is a really, really positive finding for us in partnership with Iowa State.
He is Dan Poston. We are here at Pivot Bio Farm Progress 2023. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. A lot of great information. Really excited to take this all in today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to Dan Poston of Pivot Bio. It's time now for a check of the weather. The weather forecast today, fairly straightforward. We have variable cloud cover throughout the state and temperatures in the mid-70s. Tonight, things will cool off quite a bit as we're not really used to seeing those temperatures dip down into the 40s, but we are getting closer and closer to the fall season. And then tomorrow, a beautiful day as we will have a little bit more sunshine around the state and those temperatures remain in the mid-70s. So let's turn our attention now to the National Weather Service and what's in store for the next 24 hours. As you can see from the National Weather Service, variable cloud cover with slight chances for showers and thunderstorms today, and the high temperature range expected 67 to 72. Tonight, mostly clear skies. Things will cool down reasonably as the low temperatures expected 47 to 51. And then looking at our weather forecast for Tuesday, mostly sunny with slight chances for thunderstorms in eastern Iowa. But for the most part, temperatures going to be pretty comfortable on Tuesday. Highs expected 72 to 74.
And now for our affiliate weather map for tomorrow. Cherokee, mostly sunny and 73. Shenandoah, sunny with a high around 74. Des Moines, sunny and 74. Albia, sunny with a high around 74. Waterloo, sunny, then a slight chance of thunderstorms, high of 73. Clinton, partly sunny, then a slight chance of thunderstorms, and 72.
For a more detailed forecast in your part of the state, make sure and check with your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. And that brings us to the end of the Ag Weather Outlook. And that also brings us to the end of this episode of Ag Matters PM. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can also find all of our video content on our YouTube channel. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe. Click on the notification icon as well. That will let you know whenever we have any new video content available for you to view. And don't forget our free twice daily market podcast, which are found at Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.